Ni hao and welcome to Sanya, the third stopover in the 2011-2012 Volvo Ocean Race, where the fleet are ready to embark on leg 4, south to the City of Sails, Auckland, New Zealand. Leg 4 is set to produce even more dilemmas for the tacticians. 5,220 nautical miles from Sanya to Auckland, up to 3 weeks at sea. The third of the new legs, with precious little previous data available, this is virgin territory for the Volvo Ocean racers. Overall so far, Spain's Telefonica are leading the charge, having won 3 consecutive legs. The Spanish team made regatta history by becoming the only boat to take 3 opening leg victories since 1989-90, 22 years ago, when the regatta was still called the Whitbread Round the World Race. But they have no plans to back off the pressure.
We've got to try and sail as well as possible each leg and try to win as many points as we can. With 2 or 3 legs left, we'll take stock and we'll see where we are, who our rivals are and who we have to fight against. But at the moment it would be a mistake to think that we've got to beat this boat and not this other boat, because things can change very quickly in just a couple of legs. For instance, if we get a 4th and a 5th and another boat wins 2 stages, then things are completely flipped around. We just need to keep sailing well and pick up points.
Camper pulled in expert help from the Emirates Team New Zealand coaching staff to help them reel in the race leaders, aiming to capitalise on the all-important import races, knowing that as they embark on leg 4, every point is vital in their quest to rein in Telefonica. But if yesterday's Sanya Haitang Bay import race was meant to mark the beginning of that arrest, it didn't work. Telefonica romped away with the win, leading from start to finish, while Chris Nicholson's team were unhappy campers, scrapping to recover from last to finally finish 4th.
Well, you know, the mood on board's of course pretty sombre. We wanted to do better than that today. It's quite a shifty day, and you know, we thought we got out of the start pretty in good shape. And then a big shift to the right, which we didn't get onto. So we were well back at the top mark, and you know, usual story, kind of fought our way back through, but you know, just not enough time.
Camper now turn their attention to the ocean leg to Auckland, where public expectation to lead the fleet home is high.
A lot of history's gone before this boat getting into Auckland first. A lot of incredible rivalry, a lot of intense battles down the coast. God, I mean, the memories of my life. Started at North Cape and come to Auckland. So they know, there's nothing needs to be said. They know what's expected, what the public want and what the team want.
France's Group Armour arrived second into Sanya. Frank Camus's team riding a wave of newfound confidence, now within 10 points of Camper after leg 3, aiming to dislodge them in leg 4.
We appreciated coming second. That was good for us, because it was earned under conditions that would not normally have been favourable to us. We think we're on a good path, and we hope to continue on it. We hope the next leg will give us even better conditions. We'll see.
After a dismasting in leg 1, Puma Ocean Racing, powered by Berg, continue their battle to rise through the rankings. Amongst the front runners for much of leg 3, their confidence is fully restored. Runner-up in yesterday's import race, Puma's aim now to take a leg win.
Leg 4 is clearly a big leg for us. You know, this feels like the first stopover that we've been able to make some adjustments. You know, leg 1, obviously the mast falling down really kind of spiraled and set us back on a couple of the legs, but you know, I think now we're pretty comfortable. We've made some adjustments to the boat, to the sails, and you know, we feel like we got a pretty reasonable chance as always.
Korean Walker's Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, winning both the import and sprint leg in their home port, was a dream come true, but they need to capitalise on the performance under Spinnaker, eyeing up the next 2 legs to do so.
We're lying 5th, so our aim's to be in the top 3, so we've got a bit of work to do. And this leg will be hard for us as well, I think. Looking at the forecast, there's going to be a lot of action in this next leg, both in the first sort of week of the race and also big doldrums crossing, and there's a lot of other things at play. We've made a few changes to the boat, so we've got every reason to be optimistic. So yeah, we'll see how we go.
Team Sanya's home port visit has delivered the tonic the team needed to help them recover from a double dose of ocean legs. But the huge turnout and overwhelming reception they, and especially their superstar Chinese team member Tiger, received when they arrived has given Team Sanya fresh inspiration to battle on against newer, faster adversaries.
All
of our crew are very happy. We've had a pretty good rest and have regained a lot of energy. We hope we have a good performance in leg 4.
The biggest talking point dockside, though, was something the weather experts have been tracking for several days: a storm brewing in the South China Sea. In what is a first for the Volvo Ocean Race, the race committee have decided to break leg 4 into 2 stages to prevent the yacht sailing directly into a potentially boat-breaking weather system. Instead, the fleet will sail the normal in-port loop followed by a coastal sprint before returning to the Sanya dock, where they'll be restarted in the order that they finish once the worst of the storm has passed.
The advice has been given to us that the wave conditions will be dangerous and potentially boat-breaking wave conditions. It's been a very difficult decision for us to make, where we believe it's in the best interest of the race.
Hard to believe, looking out over the Serenity Marina here in Sanya, that there are boat-breaking conditions offshore, which is going to lend a different flavour to this already cross-cultural, amazingly kaleidoscopic show that we've been enjoying here in the starting ceremony. This is the Kapahaka group from Auckland in New Zealand, and this is Tiger, and he's the star sailor in China. And Peter, the breeze, lovely, conditions looking great as the teams come down, but it's going to be slightly different with the delay later in the day.
Well, inshore it's lovely, it's clear skies, beautiful breeze, a little bit lighter than yesterday, but we're in for a delight for the import and then down around the Buddha statue. But later on it's going to get a bit tough outside as we look at Camper as they go down to the dock.
Kiwis enjoying the fact that it's going to be their hosting rights next time. The dignitaries there walking along, and this is the blessing of the fleet, and that's the statue of Buddha that the boats are going to be heading towards shortly. So this is the state of play in the Volvo Ocean Race. EK Martinez with Team Telefonica, they're still up at the top, having stretched their lead in the import race yesterday. Camper hanging on to second, and then Frank Camas in third spot, and Puma Ocean Racing, Abu Dhabi and Team Sanya bringing up the table. Mike Sanderson, skipper of Team Sanya, farewell to your home port. How would you rate your stopover?
The stopover's been unbelievable. You know, it has been a little hectic, be fair to say, for us and for Tiger especially, but it's been wonderful. From the moment we sailed around the peninsula just in front of me here, you know, late on a Sunday evening, it's just been unbelievable. So thank you very much, Sanya, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Now, a slightly complicated departure. Does this mean, having a little bit of complication here, that this could be to your advantage?
I mean, for sure, you know, I think this is to the whole fleet's advantage, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we need to keep the fleet in one piece, and I think there's a very high probability if we'd left straight off that we wouldn't be all in Auckland, which would be tragic. Lots of our routes actually only make us a few hours slower into Auckland, and some, you know, some not at all. So I think it's a great move.
Okay, we wish you well. You take care out there. Look forward to seeing you in the City of Sails.
Yeah, thanks very much, Martin. We'll see you soon.
So here we come in for the course for the import race to start the fourth leg. It's essentially 2 triangles, so they start reaching over to that turnaround mark twice around the harbour, and then they head off down the coast to a wonderful Buddhist statue. It'll be a port rounding. It's around 43.2 miles for total course length, and then they come back up towards the marina again, and they'll finish and then wait for their start time for the leg down to Auckland. We've been for some pretty tough looking conditions as we look outside of Sanya across to the Philippines, and we can see there the airflow coming through. It's fresh, there's lots of big waves. Further south there is that cyclone, or the remnants of, but the reason for the delay is the wind strength and the wave conditions between Sanya and the top end of the Philippines.
So here we are out waiting for the restart of leg 4. Peter Lester there giving us the lowdown on the weather and the course, and out on the water is the chief executive of the Volvo Ocean Race and also four-time competitor himself, Knut Frostad. Gorgeous day out there, Knut.
No, it's fantastic conditions, absolutely. We have seen the breeze actually building in the last 15 minutes, and we're not very far off the same wind speed we had yesterday. And the very different race course we have today is going to give a lot higher speeds on the boats, more reaching oriented, more downwind sailing. So I think we're going to be out for a treat, and it's going to be an exciting day and a special day as they're coming back tonight to stay put in the port for tomorrow morning.
Now, of course, that's been a really hard decision for you to have to make, and give us a bit of a lowdown on what was behind it.
Well, what was behind it was essentially that we were being given advice from our weather team that the wave conditions we would experience in the China Sea would be severe and potentially dangerous. And then as well, we see that there is a window, because we can actually, just by delaying them off Hainan Island for up to 12 to 18 hours, the most dramatic part of it will be gone, and it made sense for us to do it. And we've had the discussions with the different weather teams, and we looked very carefully at this, so it wasn't something we took lightly. But also it's important for us that the first part that they're doing right now counts, and so the gaps between the boats when they start the next stage of the leg are going to be the same. And trust me that part leaving Hainan tomorrow, the first boat leaving is going to have an advantage. He's going to have slightly more wind than the guys behind him. So winning this stage today is going to be absolutely critical.
Now, you have been getting a hard time from some quarters, suggesting it should be the skippers making the calls based on good seamanship. What do you say to the critics?
Well, I think in general it is the skippers making calls in this race, because most of the decisions are out of our hands and they're happening out in the ocean. What was very different now was that we had a scenario right from the start line, literally outside our doorstep, from when we left the race, and the only one that could have the ability to change that for all the teams was us. And I think in that respect there is something that is sensible, there is something that is right when it comes to philosophy of skippers, but you still have to put your hat on and with having common sense and make a good decision for the whole race. And obviously we would like the race to be competitive the whole way. This is not the race about who has the biggest guts to go through a dangerous storm. It's a race about sailing as fast as possible to Auckland.
And of course it is a question of safety as well, Peter.
It's always a question of safety, and it certainly looks pretty gnarly out in the South China Sea. We're coming up to 1:35 to go for the start as we look at the Telefonica, who are the current leaders of the Volvo Ocean Race, and they won the import race yesterday. This is a little bit of a different setup. We've got a reaching start across to the first marker, so the time on distance back to the start line will be crucial. The boats are actually still sailing away from the starting line. They will tack and come back towards the right-hand side, and then they will head off on a two-sail reach over to the first marker. We're inside, just coming up inside that last minute. These reaching starts, Martin, are real tricky, and it's all about timing your run. We see Camper have committed, they've tacked. Kenny Reid now brings Puma around under Camper. We can see the line now in position, so Camper and Puma down to leeward. Right down at the pin end with Group Armour. Up at this windward end, we've got Abu Dhabi, Telefonica in the middle of the line. Is Sanya. So there's Telefonica with just 30 seconds to go. It's all about time on distance, so they're on the run to the line. If you cannot break the line, as we can look down to leeward, there's the line between the catamaran, the powerboat, down to the pin end, which is the marker buoy, Ken Reid. Down to leeward of him, we've got Group Armour, and coming in at the windward end, steaming in at the windward end, we've got Telefonica, who have got a lot of speed on. It looks like a good time run for Eka Martinez. He means business, and they're very compressed at the leeward end. Another wonderful start there, Martin, at this windward end for Telefonica, and Abu Dhabi look good just down to leeward.
Telefonica, the benchmark boat's done it again, absolutely flying off across the line. And you'll have liked the look of that acceptor. We're seeing a big problem with Group Armour there. Knut, what can you see there?
No, I was not in a good position, unfortunately, so I couldn't see what happened there, but it looked like they stopped completely, whether they were luffed up or whether they hooked something, but they definitely stopped completely.
Well, that's a bit of an early disaster for Groupama. We'll try and find out what that was all about. We're on board with Groupama now. Well, could they have caused something up? Well, they're looking there at one of the dagger boards. I wonder if that might have been a bit of an issue. Have they snagged something?
Looks like Groupama are going back, Martin. I think Groupama, they may well have hit the start mark. They're certainly turning back. They're heading back down towards to go behind the start line. I can only assume there that Groupama have fouled at the pre-start phase. So that's an expensive mistake there. Groupama have done a 360 degrees turn or 270 degrees turn. And we'll just go back. We're going to just set up, have a replay, what happened there. But look down that leeward end where it's very compressed.
Mighty tight on it. Maybe bearing in mind that the keel swings out something like 40 degrees. Maybe it was maybe the keel snagged the line.
Oh, I think they just might have touched the mark as they've come round.
But it stopped the boat, didn't it? I mean, the boat was. You can see camper there.
But they've actually tacked, Martin. They're on port. You can see they're in irons. They're stalled as Groupama really got their time on distance.
Oh, that's
really wrong at that leeward end, and they'll pay a big price for this on the short.
Virtual are telling us already that just exactly what a penalty they've already paid. Ken Reid on Puma now taking us away. Now we're looking on board here at the leader, Knut. It is Puma, Ken Reid. How did you read the start?
Well, I think the start line had a slight favor to starting on pin end. So the bottom end of the start line was the place to be, and Puma really got that start. So even though Telefonica had very good pace across the line, Puma has the best position right now to get to the first mark as the first boat. So, but then it's going to be really tight, and the boats that have a tricky time now is Camper and Sanya, because they will be potentially covered by Telefonica, and they're going to struggle to get up to in line, and for Abu Dhabi that's going to help them. But being lured boat, as we know, getting to the first reaching mark is always good, and you can always hike up if you want there.
Abu Dhabi in the foreground here, then Team Sanya, and Abu Dhabi rolling over the Team Sanya boat. Conditions are just perfect.
Yeah, beautiful.
Great breeze.
Sanya are going to get spat out the back here by Abu Dhabi. As Abu Dhabi comes over, they'll take the wind. There'll be disturbed wind on Sanya as Abu Dhabi. We're on board Ian Walker steering from the leeward wheel. The first mark, it's essentially a left-hand turn.
Telefonica looking in a powerful position as well. Camper again spraying more water out than the rest. Off that bow.
It certainly has a different look, doesn't it?
Different look is the word.
Angle-wise, though, Martin, it is the boats that have come from the pin end. There was a bit of bias on the line that are going to be ahead at this first mark, and we can see it's Puma as she comes in. Kenny Reid. See if they're adjusting the cant on the keel, so it's Puma leads at the first mark from Camper, and next will be Telefonica.
Ken Reid swings Mar Mostro round, followed by Chris Nicholson. On Camper, they'd like to have been in this position yesterday rather than trailing at the back of the fleet. Again, the crew work all important, and there aren't many of them to reel in these big sails. Telefonica right on Camper's heels, as Abu Dhabi are indeed on Telefonica. But as Abu Dhabi comes in to make its turn, Knut, put your sailor's eye around the course. What do you see that's going to be significant?
Well, I think the most interesting parts of the course is when they get to the first bottom mark, which they're heading now, and that's after these two reaching legs. And it's always surprising to me how much even the reaching leg is stretching the fleet out. But after this bottom mark, they're going to head upwind into the bay of Sanya like they did yesterday. And we know that it's shifty, it's patchy, it's gusty with wind. And choosing the right path through those gusts and those shifts is going to be absolutely critical. And as I said before, being the first boat around this whole racetrack today may have a very decisive effect for the rest of the leg, because heading out tomorrow into the China Sea, you really want to be first boat out. So exciting upwind ahead of us when they get to the bottom mark now and head upwind.
Well, we've been talking about the compounding effect, because if the first boat gets in and then takes off again sometime, maybe in the early hours or tomorrow morning, then they get into that fading weather pattern, but they get the bigger breeze, and it is a compounding effect.
It could well be. Certainly, that is one scenario that the boat that wins this first phase of the leg 4 of the Volvo could in fact get an advantage, but we'll just wait and see how that one pans out. But for the start of this the import phase of the start of leg 4, it's Puma who have stepped out. They got a beautiful start right down on that pin end, and they've extended their lead on this really short leg. It's just two sail reaches over to Mark 1, back to the start finish to Mark 2. Then we've got an upwind leg which will shake it down. They'll go from Mark 2 up to Mark 3, and that'll be on the wind. Looks like it's around a couple of miles up here, very similar to yesterday. And we know from the conditions yesterday there are passing lanes on the upwind, but Puma have got a good solid lead there over Kemper.
Well, once again, it's that leaping away of the lead boat, and we saw that happen a lot yesterday. The big gaps created ever so quickly, and it is significant, Knut, the way that that lead boat can just somehow just sort of accelerate away and get that clean air and clean advantage.
Yeah, I think it is. One thing is getting the clean advantage and the clear air. It's also a psychological advantage. You feel you are in tune and you are in sync with the wind shifts, and when you feel confident about that, you make more good decisions. One good thing creates another one, really.
Another compounding effect, and I mean, that was exactly what was happening yesterday with Telefonica, that they just went from one great position into another and were totally dominant. But as we're looking at Puma stretching her league, here we are on Telefonica now, and Ike Martinez, he'll be reasonably content with where he is. And we know that that boat has got some real pace now. On this sort of point of sail, can Camper keep them at bay?
Well, but the boat that's showing some clean heels here is absolutely Puma. She's moved away, and it's like that leading boat just wriggles free of the clutch of the boats from behind. This is coming back to Mark 2. Puma, Camper, Telefonica. Now, on the upwind, it's less of a follow the leader, of course. There are options left and right, and there's wind shifts. And certainly Kenny Reid and Kelvin Harrop, who's calling the shots for Puma as they come into Mark 2, harden up on the wind. Boat comes round, and the Genoa comes in over the rail. We can see Brad Jackson on the mainsail.
All hands to the pumps. They are short-handed in this kind of racing, there's no doubt about that. And
they've extended there, Martin.
Well,
nice little extension over Camper.
Camper next. There are stunning pictures we're getting here on the water, and what an advert this is again, scenically for Sanya. I mean, this is glorious stuff, looking out across the bay, watching these absolute ocean greyhounds flying around the course. And the idea is obviously to promote Sanya as a fantastic sailing destination on a day like this, with these pictures going around the world. You could not ask for better conditions or a better advert, really, could you, Knut?
No, it's absolutely amazing, and I think this has taken a lot of people by surprise, because it's kind of a hidden secret. No one really knew much about Sanya before we went here, and this is just proving that it's a fantastic place to sail, as you say.
Knut, looking up the track, you're looking from out on the water. What side of the course do you like? What are you seeing? Wind on the water? What looks good?
It looks fairly solid to me across the whole bay, but all the way into the beach again, it looks like a pretty strong breeze. I see that Telefonica was just forced to tack, but I think what you see now is that some of the guys will be forced to tack from tactical positions and being covered by boats ahead of them. And both Sanya and Telefonica, who are now tacked, may not have done it because they wanted to. They just had no choice. So it's very clear that Kenny Reid is confident about heading into the beach, and from my position it looks like a strong wind all the way into the beach.
Okay, Frank Camas on Groupama making ground on Sanya bit by bit. I wonder what it was there. We'll find out in due course, but I wonder if it could have been the keel just brushing catching on the line?
Well, the canting of the keel, low, Martin, is to windward, which would be away from the marker. I actually think they just ended low on the ley line to the mark, and they probably just hooked it. They hit it. They ended up in irons. Yeah, we're on board. It's Brad Jackson. Rome Kirby on the main sheet. He's grinding the main sheet for Brad Jackson. Colvin Harrop up on the foredeck, up on the side deck there. He'll be calling shots and giving his tactical input for Kenny Reid. But certainly looks like Puma pretty happy to track all the way across to the marina side. We can see there with the animation, the marina. And you get a bit of effect there, Martin, of the wind just bending around the shore, bit of geographic effect. And gee, Ika Martinez took full advantage of that yesterday. There is a bit of a split developing here. There's 3 boats effectively coming directly on port over to the marina side. Then Telefonica, and then it's Sanya, and I think it's Abu Dhabi. They have headed out. They tacked away, probably forced to tack away to clear their air, but they're going the other way. So,
well, it is a split, and this is going to heighten interest in the way that this restart is developing. Who do you like the look of up there, Knut? Because that's a pretty big split. This is a big separation.
Well, I'm just now following Telefonica, Sanya, and Abu Dhabi, and on that side it also looks like solid pressure. Right now I can see Telefonica is bow down, and it looks like she's sailing into a left-hand shift. If that is right, that's going to be good for them. But it's tricky to say. I think Puma looks a bit lighter to me now, closer to the beach. But all the way across there is wind, so there's not the same big patches as yesterday. But I think there will be some serious shifts.
Well, somebody's got it right and somebody's got it wrong.
Well,
we'll find out in due course.
It's not really classic fleet racing here, Martin. We've got a big split. There's only 6 boats, and 3 have gone one way, 3 the other. On board Telefonica here, they've gone all the way to the left-hand side. They were pretty well forced to tack away. They were getting a little bit gassed from Camper at the bottom mark. And
so I guess now the decision that they've got to make on Puma is when they...
It's probably a ley line almost.
Yeah, a ley line that they like. And how tricky to get a ley line chosen when you know how shifty it is up there. We're looking out and we can see the different colours of water, the dark patches. But this is quite a big call.
Oh, they pick up ley line. They have a navigational package, a computer package, which gives them opposite tack bearing. And of course that will calculate really very accurately, Martin, given the performance parameters of the boat, the ley line to that mark. And Puma and Camper keep trucking on over towards the side. Gee, there's some quite big wind shifts. As we've been watching, I've managed to glance out the window and we can see the wind is moving round, and when each little gust of pressure fills down over the bay, the performance or the angles that the boat can sail at vary so much.
Well, we're watching the back of Sanya now, but then you can see that further up the track on Puma, they're just rolling into attack on Puma at the moment. But
well, that was, Martin, that's an interesting...
That was a huge knock that they seemed to get, and it looked pretty ugly.
Well,
and across the track we see Sanya going like a... Telefonica going like a train. On Sanya at the moment then.
Yeah, on Sanya. Now they're in the group right out to sea, but we can see if we just look at the boats on the right-hand side, it was Camper and Puma. They got a self-tacker. They came over, it went very, very quiet, and then both boats simultaneously tacked. And I would think they might be very close to that ley line. But then we look right over to the other extreme, and Telefonica, it's shifty. It is really shifty. We're on board Puna.
So we can see that there's some pretty interesting activity going on at the moment, and that looks like, well, that is quite clear. Telefonica's had to dip Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, there was some action over the other side with Telefonica they tacked onto port. They were the giveaway boat. They actually couldn't clear. They had to dip Abu Dhabi. and so that would have just been that's a little bit of a surprise. So Abu Dhabi is obviously going very nicely to have sailed around Telefonica. It's shifty, and there's lots of pressure. There's a lot of pressure differences on the water. Canute, it's getting pretty puffy as they get up into this top third.
It is absolutely, but I think what we just saw here, Telefonica, who was the leading boat out on the left side, had to dip Abu Dhabi. That's a bad sign for the left guys. And I think we're seeing more and more here that the guys who chose the left side going up have lost big time. They've sailed in a slowly right-hand shift, and now we're all forced to tack to get back to the mark, and they have to sail in a right-hand shift all the way back to the mark, taking a big hit. And in fact, Groupama, who was so far behind, is at least going to cross ahead of Sanya and has gained all the distance back. So in general, a big right-hand shift on the race course, which obviously going to hurt the guys on the left.
Well, that's a big, it was a big right-hand shift, and we had the luxury here of watching, and it was all what we call a self-tacker. It was such a big right-hand shift, Martin, that the boat...
I mean, we were just casting an eye away from the telly momentarily, and we could just, because it was such an unusual thing, the way you saw the boat just kind of swing upright, and then they had to roll into attack, and it was a really big knock, wasn't it?
It was a huge one. So they knocked on port, which meant, of course, once they rolled over onto starboard, Ken Reid and then Camper, they're on the ley line, or very close to that ley line to the top mark. So again, we've seen this right-hand shore, or the shore side, the marina side, really pay dividends for the boats that have come over. So Ken Reid, tactically, or Kelvin Harrop, they've picked it perfectly. They've defended on the first upwind, so they're approaching Mark II. Puma, they won the start. They've sailed beautifully up this first windward beat. They got a self-tacker at the top mark, and they've just capitalised on that. Camper are hanging in there with them though, Martin.
They are indeed, but this is the current leader. This is Puma, and she is rocketing around there. They went soft again for a little bit, but now they're right back on it. Camper is really pressed up as well, trailing in behind them. Marmostro, Ken Reid at the wheel, up on his little sailing platform there, and this is the big squirty bow of Camper charging into the top mark, and this is round the mark. Here they go. Emirates, Team New Zealand and Camper are off on the run on the heels of Puma, but Puma in a good clean race, and now we've got a real scrap coming for third and fourth. We can see here Telefonica has tacked, and Abu Dhabi's coming in. They'll probably tack a port starboard coming up in a moment, potentially.
Yeah, that was a biggie there. The boats come thundering into the top mark. Telefonica tacked onto starboard, and Abu Dhabi has tacked really short to try and get round the mark. Abu Dhabi's going to be slow. Telefonica coming up to windward. We're at the third mark, and the boats are overlapped. We're in the Volvo Ocean Race inshore, and the boats are overlapped. That's almost like a dinghy rounding, Martin, but Ian Walker there defended his lead over Telefonica, but it almost looked like an intersection. Big moment in the race there.
Oh, some spectator boats crowding around on the corner there. Hope they're not getting in the way. They'll be getting a verbal volley if they are. We're on Abu Dhabi, and Ian Walker looking carefully around, and he won't have been happy with those boats being there. Telefonica gets that Jenica out. And that is a big gain there by Groupama over Sanya. They've come back, and Abu Dhabi being penalised.
Abu Dhabi fouled out, so that was what I was talking about there. Possibly Martin, they've fouled out. They came in, there was the port starboard incident, and it was Telefonica on starboard, and they would have called, and it's been ruled that Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, they fouled out. They tacked from port to starboard, but they failed to keep clear, which means then that the penalty has gone against Abu Dhabi. Ian Walker will be fuming, Martin, making such a mistake in a race like this. It's a long way, and he's got another problem there. We can see that the Genoa and the battens have turned inside out. and whether that clears after this jibe, on this last jibe. So it's all gone a bit pear-shaped for Abu Dhabi.
So what's the penalties doing? I mean, how many turns is this? Oh, that's a mess.
And there's the issue there. See the battens, and the boats have positive roach, and with a batten to support the roach, but you can see there that that batten is stopping the sail from clearing. It might clear after this jibe. So that's a 720 penalty.
Oh, that is an absolute crushing blow for Abu Dhabi, who were sailing so incredibly well. Let's get back to the shape of the race. Well, Knut, I mean, we're getting a bit breathless up here. Now, this is meant to be, you know, just popping around the harbour and then getting your sort of psyche prepared for the great long haul, and instead it's turned into an absolute scrap.
Absolutely. I think some of what you're seeing is that these guys know that tonight, when you come back here into Sanya, if you are 1 hour in front or half an hour, even 10 minutes in front, it may make a big difference, and they're pushing the limits. And yeah, quite surprising to see. You also have to remember that they don't have the same sails on board today. They have the boats packed for Auckland, and none of them will probably take normal spinnakers. They have more furling sails, faster sails for faster sailing, and that's why we see them now all using furling sails and sailing on a sharper angle, even though they're going downwind.
So the boats are in an offshore mode. They are sails that are on a furler. We can see the furling device on the end of the bowsprit. These sails are flatter, you can't sail as deep, but you have the potential, Martin, to sail faster, but at a closer angle to the wind, and they rely on the apparent wind angle to come forward as the boats accelerate. So Puma, again, looking nice and comfortable. And we look back and we can see Camper with their...
Well, there's Kenny Reid, and he's got the look of a contented man at the moment. And I think, you know, what Knut was saying before, you know, confidence, it kind of, you know, it breeds this, you know, good decisions, and I think that applies to most sports, really. You know, everything just seems so much easier, the boat goes smoother, your manoeuvres tend to be slicker, and he'll be a pretty happy man at the moment, I would imagine.
He set this one up nicely with a good start, basically. And then on the upwind, they were smart. You know, they were right with their tactics. Kelvin Harrop got that right. He hung on, waited for the wind shift off the land. They are heading back down, you know, over to the Mark 1. So we're going to effectively Mark 4, or rounding number 4. But it is that Mark 1. It's essentially a triangle that they're doing. The boats will need to jibe to get down to the mark. But they're sailing what we call their VMG angle, or their optimum angle of getting downwind. But Martin, this race so far has been a bit more absorbing and a bit more exciting. We've had more action than what we had in the import race yesterday.
It's quite ironic, really. It's really good sailing. And again, putting my little tourist hat on, I look out the back, and I just saw that shot we had earlier of the. Look at that. I mean, that is Sanya. And Knut, we're looking on a fabulous shot of the entire fleet and the hills and the city of Sanya as the backdrop. Was this the vision you had? Because it's a great vision.
No, it looks fantastic. It looks like yacht racing, proper sailing. I mean, all the fleet here together trying to push it down to the mark. And very interesting, I'm just with Puma now, we're seeing how Camper and Telefonica in particular are really trying to work it down low, try to get an inside track on Puma. And Telefonica has done very nicely there, but the difficulty with doing that here in Sanya today is that the wind is coming in gusts. And we see how Sanya now has a lot less wind. They're trying to go up against the wind to find some more pressure. So it's tricky because you can get stuck in light wind here, and you have to get to the next wind puff and the wind gust.
And it is very shifty indeed. Probably not as shifty down at the bottom of the course as it is up at the top, where you've got all the topographical issues of the hills and the big man-made, the skyscrapers and the like, where the wind sort of curls and twists down onto the racetrack. But good pace at the moment for these boats. It's maybe they're not as pressed up as they were. But I mean, it does still look like there's plenty of breeze out there, Knut.
No, it's good breeze out there, but where we are right now, where with Puma is jibing basically, it is a lot less wind. I would say it's almost half the wind speed. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of stretching going on. But Camper clearly tried to get the inside lane, and if Camper can get the next wind gust now to weather of Puma, they could be catching up very quickly. I mean, these boats, as I said, they get a couple of knots more wind speed, 2 knots more wind speed, and they do 3-4 knots more boat speed. So wind speed is everything for these guys now.
So what happens with that, of course, it becomes like a velocity shift, Martin. You get wind shifts that obviously make a difference of where you can sail. But in terms of these high-performance boats, and these are the highest, the highest performing monohulls, if you get any sort of shift, any sort of increase in wind, it means you can sail at speed, but at a lot deeper angle. And I think that's what Knut's talking about. If one of these boats can pick up a little bit more pressure, the effect of that is that the boat can sail a deeper angle and at pace. And very quickly they will sail in behind the leading boat, or if you're the leading boat, of course, you'll extend. But the fleet now are jibing towards the bottom mark. The boat that I've been watching quite closely actually is Groupama. They, of course, were behind at the start. They got in trouble. They had to do a turn. But Groupama have come through. They have passed Sanya. They've passed Abu Dhabi. So Groupama are showing a good speed after a poor start.
Good shot there of that big sat dome at the back, the Inmar sat dome that blasts these pictures up into space and into our living rooms around the world, and all the work of the media crew members who are giving us the pictures off the boats, and as I say, bringing it right into our houses, and they will be doing that for the next 3 weeks as they make their way down to Auckland in New Zealand.
I think what will happen here, Kenny Reid has done a beautiful ley line to the 4th mark. It just looked to me as though Camper were a little bit low, a bit high on the ley line, and they'll have to sail a deeper angle, not the optimum angle to that bottom mark. I would expect Puma here to extend. Kenny Reid just went a little bit further, and Camper, if you remember, see they had
to come in deep.
Yeah, they jibed on the inside, and that's meant that Camper will come in at a deeper angle. They'll lose a bit of speed, so Puma, I would expect to extend here by a couple of lengths or so.
Okay, and Knut, you were talking about Telefonica before, and she certainly seems to be making up some ground.
Yeah, no, I think managing to stay slightly lower than the others. She has been catching up on Camper, and only just about the boat length behind Camper now going into the mark. There's a bit of compression going on. There is a bit more pressure coming from behind, but as you said, Puma really managed to get the ley line right and have a nice line of all the way to the mark. And Camper is pretty close still. I mean, but the Telefonica is the boat that has done best on this downwind.
Well, surprise, surprise, the Spanish boat doing it as it does, and looking well. It has a sort of clean look to it, doesn't it? I mean, it's smart boat being very smartly sailed, and again, going back to Knut's point before, this confidence does indeed breed confidence, and they are impeccable the way that they're sailing at the moment. Groupama's coming in now, furling in that big Genoa, and behind them will be Sanya. So Groupama coming back into the fray after their misfortunes on the start line.
Yeah, that's, is that thing going to furl up?
Doesn't look too
just
clean,
looks
does it?
a little, it's holding up on it. No, it's come in, they're fine. So they're off now on another two-sail reach over to the start-finish line area. So this will just be a little bit like follow the leader as we look. We're on board Sanya dropping that furled sail on the deck. And the next real big talking point, Martin, will be the next upwind, where the boats again will beat upwind up towards the marina, up to that 3rd. It'll be
I wonder if we'll get another split.
Well, we could well get another split. It's just a matter of you know, whether you can survive in clear air, how much turbulence you're getting off the boats ahead of you.
Tiger there earning his stripes on the grinder. A furious activity as they settle themselves down for the beat.
But it wouldn't have gone unnoticed, Martin, on the first upwind by the fleet that when Puma and Camper came all the way across to this right-hand side, that there was a substantial wind shift in on near the marina, and that meant they could lay through the top mark.
Wow, look how Ian Walker's been punished on Azam, the determined boat from Abu Dhabi. We're just watching the virtual there, and that was pretty crushing, really, as Abu Dhabi comes round from virtual eye to real. And this is a huge blow, Knut, for Abu Dhabi, because they've lost big time after that penalty.
Well, penalty's expensive. It's expensive in real life. I'm just looking, there's been a bit of an extension again here with Sanya, Groupama. Just talking about the leading boats, they got into a bit more pressure again and started. Well, look at Mike Sanderson urging himself to push forward. He'd love to roll over the top. Look at the body language.
Come on!
Well, they're enjoying that, obviously.
But Groupama are still. Remember, they had that issue folding that sail up, and that has meant that Sanya have got pretty well bow to bow on the two-sail reach.
Oh, that was funny, whipping the boat into action. So this is our leading boat. This is Puma looking back down the fleet.
So this is Mark 5. They'll come round here and then the upwind up to the top mark, and then we're off down to the Buddhist statue. So Puma continues to lead. They led off the line. They led at the first mark. Sailed pretty impressively so far, Martin.
They have indeed, and we shouldn't lose the sort of overall picture of, you know, the fact that they are setting off on the leg. And Knut, I mean, you were talking before about them being sort of more or less locked and loaded and ready to go at a moment's notice. So the boats now are set to go. They won't have to put anything else on. They've got their long leg sails on, their offshore sails, and they're ready for the off.
Absolutely. So the rules are that these boats, they cannot be taken anything off them and not put anything on them, and they cannot have any assistance from the outside with shore crews working on them either. So they are all set to go for Auckland. They will have every single piece of freeze-dried food for at least 20 days from now to Auckland on board.
So on board Camper here, and they are ready to go, and they'll quite like where they are at the moment, and certainly a huge improvement on their performance yesterday when Telefonica absolutely reigned supreme. So I guess it's a funny kind of psychological thing, isn't it? Because they all know what's at stake, and they know what they've got to do in this race, and they're ready to go, but they're going to have a pause. So I wonder where their minds are.
Oh, I think their minds right now are on the immediate, and that's to get this import phase completed as best they can, and to maintain a good position. And then the next leg that we've got, which will be absolutely fascinating this afternoon, is down around the statue, or there's a marker down off the statue and back, but it's not straightforward. You know, I'm being told there's a couple of wind gates, you know, a couple of opportunities where the wind might die out and the boats will get very quiet on the leg. I think it's about 16 miles each way. So I think we're in for a very fascinating afternoon, because it's really an inshore coastal type race. Groupama comes around the mark, around Mark 5. They've tacked away. So in fact, Sanya managed to roll Groupama, Martin, on that little reach.
Nifty work. Clearly the whipping worked on the hull there, and got the old girl to sprint up a little bit more. So he'll be pretty chuffed at a little victory. He had quite a smile on his face, didn't he, as he was coming off the wheel, urging his white boat to go a bit and get a bit of an advantage over these guys here. on the French boat.
So Canute, you know, you're down there, you're looking up the course again. Same question as the first upwind. What side of the course do you like this time?
Well, I'm just behind Camper here, and we have really solid pressure, strong wind all the way to the beach again. It looks to me that they're even more lifted going into the beach, but it looks fairly similar to the last upwind, and I'm not surprised to see Puma actually continuing all the way in like they did on the last upwind.
It's interesting, from where we are, we can see that, that there are these lines of pressure, and at the moment the fleet is in some quite nice dark stuff, but then closer in you can see some slightly softer patches, not that far away from where Puma had to tack, or was forced to tack on the first leg, which actually turned out to be the ley line anyway. So there's the leader, and this is the second placed Camper, the life levers, charging along there. And all those guys on the boat, I can tell you, are just itching to get this next leg complete and sail home to what they know will be a quite extraordinary welcome. I mean, we've talked a lot this week with these guys, and you've almost felt sorry for the pressure that they're under, both here and at their home in New Zealand, where they're more or less expected to come in first, and there'll be a big disappointment if they don't. But you know, this is sailing, and it's a huge ask. But I mean, that Auckland welcome, you've experienced it. Canute, something special.
No, it is something special, and the fact that every single person in New Zealand knows this race, and it has such a history. And I still remember his arrivals in the viaduct, and the taxi driver asking me on the way home about, you know, why did I jive just before there and not there? And although people here in Sanya have been fantastically enthusiastic, they still have a few years to go before they really know the race.
But it's a while since it was there. It's 10 years since it was there, and hang on one.
Well, look at this, Martin. The wind is all over the place.
That's exactly what happened on the last on that first beat.
That big self-tacker again, and I'm referring to Puma. And Kenny Reid this time, he was bow down, so the reciprocal of that, once you get on the starboard, you'll be in a nice big lift. But it seems as they get over towards this marina side, there is a big bend in the wind. Puma have taken advantage of it. Camper now have also tacked. Got to believe it's a geographic shift. It's a it's an effect of the wind on the coming off this right-hand side. So Camper have tacked away with Puma. As we look up towards the top mark, they're not quite on the ley line.
Telefonica pushing on a bit further. They liked this side yesterday, but I think you probably see them start the mast rake starting to come up a little bit, as if they go into something a bit lighter.
Well, in that
Virtual
position,
telling us here, Ken Reid.
On that position there, you'll expect Puma to just really gobble up that ley line, and I would think that Telefonica will clear their air on Puma to the windward side. That'll put them, Telefonica, very close to the ley line. But it gets a little bit funky, a little bit shifty over towards this marina side. Kenny Reid, he'll be happy with his day's work so far.
He sure will. Oldest man in the fleet, showing them how it's done. He's 2 days older than Tony Ray on the Camper, the boat in the background. 50 years old, and he's, I think, a way to go to be. I mean, we've seen guys in their 60s. Who was it? Canute. Who was the oldest guy to sail on this race?
Well, Magnus Olsson certainly turned 60 in the last race, and that was a big milestone for a guy that's done plenty of years in this race.
I think he must be taking some kind of young elixir there, because he just looks far too young. The big grin he had on his face, I recall. Great sailor.
Boats are approaching Mark 6. Once they get round Mark 6, they're off to the Buddha mark down the coast. Well, that's interesting that Camper didn't like sitting down in that leeward position. They're coming across here to consolidate, I would think, on Telefonica. So that's a defensive
tack.
It could be, but Martin, there's so much wind shift over on this right-hand side. Chris Nicholson not prepared just to wait and let the windward boat, which would be Telefonica, roll over the top of them. So two tacks are expensive, but it's about preserving their position as second. Puma must be very close to the ley line, so Puma lead from Camper, then Telefonica. It's going to be a covering tack here of Camper on Telefonica.
How expensive are those tacks going to be, Knut? That's an unfortunate manoeuvre, and this is Telefonica look like they're going to want to roll right over them.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm just at the mark now, and it looks very clear that Puma is going to lay this, which is well done, and they're going to stretch the legs big time on Camper. You were talking before about the conditions sailing over to the Buddha, and we just had a look at the last weather forecast a few hours ago, and very interesting. The forecast for where we are right now is a strong northeasterly breeze, and the forecast for the Buddha is a strong southwesterly. So somewhere in between there's going to be a big change with no wind, and someone's going to stop. So I think we're in for a big of a restart on the way to the Buddha as well.
Well, it's a game of enormous intrigue here in Sanya, and we're coming up towards the end of our broadcast here from this fabulous port, and we're going to actually be leaving it in, as I say, some great intrigue here. But it's been a fantastic stopover, and I think that it certainly has put Sanya on the map. We're watching now Camper and Telefonica heading back down and towards the mark. And Knut, just sum up your feelings about Sanya and how you feel it's all gone as putting your Volvo hat on.
Well, I think, you know, when we first looked at going to China a few years ago, where there wasn't many options, and it was just going to the north in Qingdao, where it's fairly cold and difficult sailing conditions. And this is a place that we just have discovered, and I think the whole world has discovered it right now, at least the sailing world, because we didn't know about these conditions, and we really didn't know that we even had a race here, and it's just proven to be a fantastic venue, in line with any other world-class venues we have in sailing.
Peter, you would echo that, because you've been saying all the while we've been watching it and the time we've been here that you can see something quite remarkable in terms of this as a venue.
Oh, I think as a venue here in Asia, this is fantastic. Lovely shore facilities. There's facilities for a race, for racing, are brilliant. It's shifty, there's passing lanes. As Telefonica come round the Mark 6, that was quite an intriguing little tussle there with Camper just coming across. They leave our tack. They tried to just make it as difficult as possible for Telefonica to lay the mark, but Eka Martinez has got round behind Camper and very close. The person or the team that has benefited here the most would be Puma, as Groupama now come in. They're coming in on port. They've still got a tack to do.
Okay, so we are going to end this telecast very shortly, but do stay with us on VolvoOceanRace.com. We'll be staying with the racing as long as we possibly can on the internet, as far as we can get the signal to go. So from Sanya, we're going to be bidding you a very fond farewell. It's been a fantastic experience here. We've loved the sort of cross-cultural exchanges, and there are going to be a lot more of them as the Volvo Ocean fleet heads off on leg 4 down to Auckland, known as the City of Sails for a very good reason, and you are guaranteed there will be a quite amazing welcome down there for the Volvo Ocean race fleet.